Bill Kenealy is our guest today on Who's Who. He's a distinguished naval officer, and he had a great career. And so we're going to talk to Bill about his early life and about his career. So, Bill, welcome to Who's Who, and thank you for coming this morning.
A pleasure. I've looked at you very many times.
Oh.
Listened to your strumming, too.
So you've watched, you listen to my music?
Your strumming.
Good
Yes.
for you.
That's right.
Nice to have a fan. Well, I wouldn't call it a fan. You wouldn't.
Oh, I'm a booster.
Are you? Great. All right. Well, you, where were you born?
Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland, Ohio. Well, how about your current family, your kids?
Well, I have one in London.
Ah.
He worked for the Queen.
He works for the Queen.
He worked, he was an architect from VPI.
Oh.
And you and I have something in common.
Yeah. When did he graduate?
Oh, yeah.
When did he graduate?
I think it was 40 years ago. He's here for his 40th anniversary of graduating from VPI.
Yeah, my son graduated in '85, so he's not quite 40th yet. Huh?
Yeah, my son is able to come in here. He's 62 years old.
Oh.
As a matter of fact.
Yeah, mine's a few years younger than that, not much. But he's over in London as an architect.
My son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. What's he? You say he's working for the Queen. What?
Yes, actually, he was in the Civil Engineering Corps of the Navy.
Yeah.
Retired as commander, and then they de-established in London, and so he stayed there, bought some real estate, worked for the Lord Mayor of London. Mm-hmm. They do things a little differently there. And then he applied to work for the Queen. Mm-hmm. Don't ask me why.
Yeah.
But he speaks 5 languages.
Great. So
they said, "You're the guy we want." And so his job was security, tourist, and maintenance.
Mm-hmm. So he's not serving as an architect?
Not anymore.
Okay.
But he was involved with the monuments.
Okay. What other, you have some other children too then?
Oh yeah. My second child is a Deputy Judge Advocate General of California. She was born also in Ohio, and went around the Navy with me. You may have remembered the case they had of the snipers.
You mean the snipers here?
Yeah. She was a deputy to the appointed counsel.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Why don't you become a lawyer?" She did. And then she practiced here, then went to California, became what is now the non-political Deputy Judge Advocate General.
Okay, what about your next one?
The next one actually was in automobile. He sold automobiles. Oh. He lives not far from us. We see him quite a bit. And he has 3 kids.
Oh, 3?
3 sons.
I have a son-in-law who's also sold automobiles until about 10 years ago, I guess.
Right.
He got another job that was a little more stable.
Yeah, well, same way with mine.
Yeah. And your next, we've got 3 so far.
My third son actually went to UVA, and after that, he worked for DOD, and then he went with the Defense Security Agency.
Yeah.
And he's a fairly high-ranking guy there at Fort Meade, not far from here.
Oh, okay. So you got 2 that's close by. What about your 5th one?
My 5th one was actually my post-Vietnam child. Born when I was over 40 years old. My wife was over 40 years old. When I came back, she said, "I'd like to have a second daughter." And so we did. She was born in Fort Belvoir and went to local schools, the only one.
And she was a daughter?
What's that?
The last one was a daughter then?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you had 50% odds there.
Well, if I ever marry again, I'll have daughters.
You'll have daughters. You know, I kind of concur with that, although I love my son too. You know.
Yeah, I mean, the sons don't give much.
But my 3 daughters live around here. They take care of me.
And my 2 daughters, one's in California, one's here.
Yeah.
She lives in not far from here, and we see her almost every day.
Good.
Takes good care of us.
All right. Well, let's go back then to your early days and your dad and mom. You lived in Cleveland.
Right.
Yeah.
My father was an orphan. My mother was an immigrant. So you can see, I can identify with some of the people coming over here.
Sure, sure.
But I married up. I married somebody who was a DAR and who goes all the way back to Daniel Boone.
Oh, is that right?
Around where you are.
Yeah, yeah.
So we got a mixture of the two different bloodstreams.
Do you have any siblings? Your sisters or brothers?
Oh yeah, I had 5, and now there's 2 left.
Yeah. There's only there were 5 in my family, and there's 2 of us left also.
I know.
Yeah.
It's a high attrition rate.
That's right. And the younger ones, the youngest died. Well, he was second to die. The youngest sister was dead. Well, anyway, what about your grade school and your? Remember anything special about those?
Yes, I actually was educated in the Catholic education in Cleveland, and they were pretty strict.
Yeah.
Wrapped my knuckles a lot.
So you had the nuns with the rulers, huh?
That's right. And then I went to the same type of school that the last 2 people went to Supreme Court.
Oh.
It was Jesuit operated.
Yeah.
And you had to pay to get in, and you had to pass the test. So I was sort of prepped.
Yeah.
I went to John Carroll.
Yeah.
It's the same way.
Well, did you back in high school? Did you participate in any sports or?
No, I worked a shift, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week.
While you were in high school?
Oh yeah. I was in high school.
Yeah.
At that time, there was no grants, and unless you chose your parents well, you worked to get in.
Yeah, yeah.
It was private, so you had to pay.
Yeah. So in John Carroll University, now that's an interesting name. How did it get to be John Carroll? Who is John Carroll?
He's one of the signers of the Declaration.
Oh, is that right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's a Carroll County here.
Oh yeah, we have several Carroll counties.
So he's.
I was born in Carroll County, Virginia. Well, you know, we have Carroll County, Maryland, and
I know
Carroll County, Tennessee.
And I think that's where the name came from.
Maybe so.
So they chose it.
Oh.
And
because it had been St. Ignatius before, when it was formed in '86.
That was a high school, and then John Carroll was the university.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that's how that worked.
All right.
And so, actually, you had to work to get in. Now they have a waiting list to get into the grade school or the high school, and it costs us $1,700.
Oh, so it was a progressive. You moved from the high school into the college.
Right.
Okay.
And one of my classmates was Don Shula.
Yeah. Oh, is that right?
Born almost the same day.
I'll be darned.
And he turned out to be the winningest coach, 18-0.
Now let's see, he's coached for Baltimore?
He went to the Browns, then to Baltimore.
And then to Baltimore. And then to Miami, did he?
Yeah, he had a little problem there at Baltimore.
Ah.
And then he went to Miami, and that's where he had his record.
Ah, okay.
There's a statue of Don in front of the Miami stadium.
So he's a really successful John Carroll graduate.
He's very successful.
Well, what did you do after you graduated?
Well, actually, when it happened, that was draft time.
Yeah.
And so I was perfect for the draft.
Oh.
And what happened, a couple of my friends said, hey, we can avoid the draft. You can take and join a Marine unit.
Ah.
And I said, oh, good. And that was 1950.
Yeah.
If you remember what happened in 1950, the Korean War.
Yep.
So 1950, the Army put their ROTC at John Carroll. So I joined the ROTC.
Oh, okay.
I avoided going to the terrible time.
Yeah.
They were sent all the way to really Yellow River.
Yeah.
And
so they were probably in the Chosin Reservoir
there's
battle.
2 of them still at the Chosin River. Never came back.
Yeah.
So that was the first good luck I had. And then at the end of my 2 years at the ROTC, they said, I said, I'll be a second lieutenant in the Army Transportation Corps. No, because you only had 2 years. So I turned to the Navy, and fortunately, they picked me up.
Yeah.
And so I went into the Navy program.
So they want, for the Army, they want a little more educated guys. Is that the idea?
Yeah, you know how bureaucratic the Army is.
Yeah.
So they said, you can't qualify to be a second lieutenant in the Transportation Corps. So instead, you enlisted in the Army. Well, I went to the Navy.
Yeah. For
no particular reason except to join the RAF or to avoid the draft. And then I said, send me out to the Southwest Pacific. They still had a little action going there.
Yeah.
That shows how dumb I was. They sent me out to the submarine force at Pearl Harbor.
That was 53.
That was 53. And I was treated by an elite corps. They were very successful in World War II with the Japanese, and we lost about 52 of them.
Oh.
So it was pretty hazardous. We also I ran into Jimmy Carter. He was there for a couple of years. Not sure what he was doing.
He was probably a lieutenant?
I think.
Yeah.
Of that
lieutenant commander, no higher than lieutenant commander.
No,
wasn't he class of 46 or 45?
I'm not sure what
from the
class.
Naval Academy.
But he was on his way, and he somehow got hooked up with Hyman Rickover.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Later became Admiral Hickover.
Yes, he did.
The father of the nuclear sub.
That's right. The first time that Hyman went over for selection, the Navy wouldn't select him admiral.
Is that right?
Few people know this. And so what happened, Congress says, unless you promote that guy to Rear Admiral, no 06 is going to be a Rear Admiral in the Navy. So Hyman made Admiral. Ah. He was a mean guy. Legendary.
Oh, he is. He was. Yeah. But now, so were you working on nuclear subs at that time?
At that time, they had what they call a fleet-type boat, World War II version.
Yeah.
And it did the job. Most of the navies, all of the navies use that, diesel-powered.
Yeah.
And so, under the new construction, he was putting a nuclear heart into the new submarine.
And this was 1953.
Yep.
When was the first, the Polaris was the first nuclear sub, wasn't it?
The Nautilus.
The Nautilus?
Yep.
Okay. Which was a Polaris type submarine?
That came later.
Yeah, okay.
Because I think the first missile office was Polaris Missile Office.
Yeah.
And what happened is I got involved in the functions, how things worked, and how they fit in the new envelope. Bigger envelope.
Yeah.
Faster envelope. Yeah. Could go months without fuel.
And without surfacing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was very effective. So I saw the Nautilus go to sea. And it was I didn't realize how important that was. That's still a primary weapon system for us.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the Nautilus that's the one first one under the North Pole.
Yep.
The North Pole ice.
Came out of the ice.
Yeah.
And
it's now up in Connecticut.
Yeah. Groton, Connecticut.
Yeah.
So
I've been through it.
It's a roomy thing compared
to the other one.
The other ones were tight. 80 people. These things carry a doctor, the new ones, and a lot more capability. And we use them very effectively against our opponents.
So you later was assigned to a submarine tender down in Key West. Yeah. That supplied the submarines with supplies, I presume.
Exactly.
You go out to sea with a submarine tender and meet up with subs and provide.
Yeah, World War II, we did a lot of that.
Yeah.
After that World War II, not so much. We were at what they called Submarine Squadron 12, Key West, Florida.
Yeah. But we still had diesel subs at that time.
Very few.
Few, yeah.
The ones we had, I had in Key West, everything else was being nuked.
Oh, is that okay?
So they were changing over.
Okay.
But we still have to take care of them. And at that time, Castro came in.
Oh, okay.
1959, 1960.
Yeah.
And we were not involved directly, but everybody else was. The Air Force flew over, recon, and we knew they had a lot of capability.
Yeah.
About 3,000 Soviet people were manning the missiles or the platforms.
Yeah.
So the story you will probably know that Robert Kennedy, Attorney General, he shouldn't have been doing that.
Yeah.
But anyhow, he was. He negotiated with the Soviet counterpart, but they agreed to take what they had in Cuba off, which is what we wanted. But we had to take the semi-range stuff in Turkey off. Yeah. And there's probably a lot more to that.
Oh, yeah.
But one of the things was we had nukes all around. At that time, we had more of that. We had the first ones and more of them.
Yeah.
But the Soviets copied. They had some big ones.
They sure did. They had multi-megatons later on.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they had relatively a lot of trouble.
Yeah. So did we have multi-megatons, though. So,
well,
let's go on. You were involved in the recovery of John Glenn from the first orbit.
Quite an accident.
Yeah.
Because
how did that happen?
He made, as you know, the first revolution.
Yeah.
He came down off of Florida, and everybody was saying, "Where's John Glenn?" So I happened to be going to the PX to get my wife a birthday gift, the 20th of February, 1972, and I stood behind a woman with the ID card and said, "Mrs. Glenn." So, good. I thought, I know where John Glenn is going to be. And he was. And later that night, men in suits came by, and they said, "Everything's closed in Key West on Saturday night." I don't think anymore, but there was. "We need to take John Glenn's suit and get him ready for Congress on Monday." So they gave me the suit, and we had our crew clean, press, put it on plastic, bring it back to me. I wrote a little note to John Glenn, saying, "Congratulations," and put it in his pocket. Of course, he never said thank you.
Well, he probably never had. Did he ever have an opportunity to? Other than
he was a busy guy.
Yeah. Okay. Now you you had post-grad training, and that was at Wright-Patterson.
Right.
So, and then you worked in the Defense Electronics Supply Center. That's in Dayton, right?
Dayton.
And that provides what?
Supplies
electronics for all of the Department of Defense.
Well, the Department of Defense.
Yeah.
And the first commander was a Navy admiral.
Oh.
We were all purple.
Yeah.
At that time. And he had somebody from each service. We had him go all over the country spreading the gospel about this new outfit, logistics.
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot about Army garrisons, Army bases, where they are, and so I felt very comfortable.
Well, you went to post-grad at Wright-Patterson Institute of Technology prior to this. Did you get a degree from that, or was that just training in a certain area?
No, we got a full degree. It's the one place in the Air Force you get a baccalaureate degree.
Yeah.
We had 4 Navy guys, 4 Army guys,
yeah.
A token Marine, and the rest was Air Force.
Oh, okay.
But also we had agency people.
Yeah.
I didn't have much to do with agency people, but I learned how important they are.
Yeah. Well, let's go on to the Defense Electronics. You were in Dayton. Did you happen to go through the Air Force Museum while you were there in Dayton?
Oh yeah.
Wasn't that great?
Yeah.
I came back during that period, 63 to 66. I was stationed in California, but I came back to Miamisburg, Ohio, about every month because I was with the Lawrence Livermore Labs, and they did a lot of our research work for us. So,
Area B.
Yeah. So
Yep.
I got back there very. Did you ever run into a restaurant called Kenny's Restaurant in Franklin?
Probably did, but I don't remember.
Don't remember that. Well, if you were there, you'd remember it. I think. Anyway, all right. I just wondered about that. Okay, let's go on now. You went to Pearl Harbor. From there, the Vietnam was going on, so you were providing supplies from the Navy for the forces in Vietnam.
Right.
It was transportation operator.
First time the Navy ever gave me what I wanted.
Oh, is that right?
My wife's from Hawaii, and her father was a civilian fire chief, so she was really a kamina, and she used to play for the Navy chaplain weddings, and that's how I met her, playing for one of my friends.
What, playing what?
Organ.
Piano? Organ, no. Okay.
And the choir.
Okay.
So, you know, I met her there, and we got married later.
Well,
but
did you just, when did you get married?
1955.
So 55, so you were in Pearl Harbor, yeah, okay. That count, that figures.
Yeah, that's right.
You were just at the right age to be, you weren't thinking about that too.
That's right. Well, I was single and happy, and things changed.
Okay. Well, let's get back to Vietnam. So you were in the agency that supplied us with all kind of supplies, munitions.
The Navy particularly.
Oh, but not the Army?
No.
Oh, okay.
The Navy, they had an area called Yankee Station.
Yeah.
And we keep our carriers out Yankee Station.
Yeah.
We provided a lot of air support for operations in Vietnam.
Okay.
We take care of anybody, but basically it was the Navy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on here. You then became you were in the Inspector General IG office for for General Abrams, and you worked directly with General Abrams. So you were in the IG of MACV. No. No.
What happened is I was sent out there to Naval Forces Vietnam.
Yeah.
That's what my order said. When I got to Tan Son Nhut, what they said, hey, MACV was there. They said, you now are detailed to us.
Okay.
And you are going to be the IG for the Navy and the Marine Corps.
Okay.
Because they had a critical report from another agencies, that is MACV country, saying they weren't ready. So my job was to take the Navy portion, Marine portion, which wasn't very big, and work with the Army Vietnam, which is apart from WMIX, or
ARVN,
and then to work with the 7th Air Force.
Yeah.
Now, we're not supposed to talk, but we did.
Yeah, okay.
So I came out of there with a real good education on what was going on. And of course, some of the stuff
throughout all of Vietnam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the Navy.
You were there in 1970. I went there in 70 also. I was September of 70. I came, and I went there to be in the Army IG. I'd taken the course here in Washington, and then I went. But I sat in this tent waiting for my assignment, and they had changed my assignment. I went into MACV headquarters, into the J3 office, which was I enjoyed that assignment too. All right, let's go on now. You come back and you become in the Joint Chief, the project manager of the Worldwide Command and Control System.
Right.
That was a big job.
It was a good job, but what happened? I came back. I went to the Industrial College of the Armed Forces.
Yeah.
And I knew what was happening in Vietnam because I worked for Nixon for a little while. Yeah. And got into some of the discussions concerning what is going to happen to Vietnam. In 1972, I left. In 1972, Jane Fonda came. In 1973, our prisoners were released.
Yeah.
1974, we had Watergate.
Yeah.
And you know all about that. And of course, Nixon resigned rather than be kicked out. And you know the story. They got his tape, so he decided I better go.
Yep. Okay, now we move on, and we've got only a couple minutes left. But you had joined a special project in '81 that worked directly for President Reagan.
Yeah.
Can you tell us anything about that?
Yeah, very fast. What happened is I did not know, but there was a time when they split all the black programs out of CIA.
Yeah.
CIA had some problems. Bay of Pigs was just one. And so this is all completely covert.
Okay.
And so partly because of luck, partly because of associations, they fired the guy who was in charge, a Navy captain.
Yeah.
Navy was doing it for DOD all the way. And they said, you got the job.
Yeah, so you're a Navy captain at this time.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
Yeah.
And I'm happy where I am.
Yeah. So this is a worldwide command and control system.
Right.
It had a major responsibility. So you went from there. We were talking about special project for the DOD for President Reagan. Did you get to know Reagan personally?
Never met him.
Never met him.
But what happened, it had to go through the Intelligence Committee, and it had all the services, and he had to approve it.
Yeah.
Because he had been in a little bit of trouble with Iran.
Okay.
We won't go into that.
Yeah,
and so what happened is they controlled this very tightly, very tightly. The Army had their input, the other services too.
Okay, so you, after that project, you retired after 33 years, which most people have to retire after 30, so I assume that was a special thing. You formed a company after you retired, Innovative Technology Corporation, as an entrepreneur, huh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was not a very innovative name, but we had it, and basically what it amounted to, the national stock number. Every number, you're familiar with that, 11 digits. Yeah. And so that was part of my responsibilities. I understood how it worked. I got together with somebody with money, somebody who had the IT, and we created a system called the Technical Logistics Reference Network. And it was a hit. We sold it on the market, but we were sponsored by NAVC.
Oh, okay.
So we were halfway out and halfway in.
Yeah.
They complained. The competitor said, hey, look, you have access to it. I used to get the tapes, put them in my station wagon, and drive them to the company up here, see? So we went from wine to vinegar till we bankrupt.
Okay.
So, but I sort of tested it out. You know, you have a right to try and you have a right to female.
Yep. Now you went from then you joined Caliber Systems, which was a fairly good-sized company.
Well, it started with 30, and Bill DePue was the boss, and of course he's tied right into the Army.
Yeah.
His father was a major general.
His dad was a 4-star general.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, yeah.
Very well known. But the son wasn't in the military, but he had the connections, and we started with about 30 people, and then we moved to a place called Walker's Lane, and that was before the hospital was there.
Oh.
And we were one of the first, and that was property owned by an African-American family called Walker.
Okay.
And that's where Walker Lane came.
Yeah. Okay, so you retired from that in 2005. Did you come here in 2005?
Well, actually, I went to hospital.
Okay.
And I was treated at Alexandria Hospital, and then I went to get therapy, and so they're looking for a good place. They found a place called Renaissance.
Renaissance Garden. Huh? Yeah.
It's Garden Ridge now. So I went there, and they found out that finally they thought I had Agent Orange. Picked it up in the rivers there.
In Vietnam.
And you know the story there. So this is why this leg is the way it is.
Yeah.
So they fiddled around for a long time, finally said, you have Agent Orange, and they approved it.
Oh.
But anyhow, my daughter came from California. My wife came in and said, we're going to move you from Renaissance into HP 513.
Okay.
That's where I am now.
That's how you got there.
Yep.
Well, have you enjoyed your years here? You've been here now 14 years.
Well, I've enjoyed it, possibly because I had my kids all around,
Yeah.
except
yeah.
the one in London.
Yeah.
And he happens to be here right now at the reunion. But the big thing was I had all the 5 kids, and I enjoyed the area. All the kids went to university with the president's name, Mason, you know,
Sure.
Jefferson, and so on and so on. So they did very well. So I'm happy.
Well, Bill, thank you for coming on board today, on board the Who's Who.
Well, not at all.
So
I want to tell you now, you see what's happened to Joe Biden?
I see that.
You know, you and I better be careful.
I agree with you. All right.
I'll be listening.
Thank you, Bill.